The idea of a BRICS currency has been under discussion within the alliance for several years. However, as the group grows and economic pressures mount, the conversation around a shared BRICS currency has recently gained momentum. At the BRICS summit in Kazan, multiple images were released on the official BRICS website showing a symbolic currency note being presented to the Russian president, the current BRICS chair. This imagery has sparked speculation about the possibility of a unified currency, whether in the form of a BRICS specific note, the yuan as a common currency, or another medium aimed at reducing dependence on the US dollar as a global reserve currency. Before delving into the proposed banknotes' details and significance, it's essential to understand why BRICS nations are seeking alternatives to the dollar. This push is driven by both economic and political factors, as member countries aim to shield themselves from dollar-based fluctuations, strengthen trade ties within the bloc, and gain greater control over their financial policies in a multipolar global economy. The US dollar's role as the dominant reserve currency is deeply rooted in the economic restructuring that followed World War II, particularly due to the Bretton Woods Conference of 1944. This landmark event not only established the dollar as a central currency, but also led to the creation of two key institutions: the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank, which were tasked with promoting exchange rate stability and economic recovery. Key economists John Maynard Keynes and Harry Dexter White were instrumental in designing this system, each with unique visions. Keynes advocated for a new international currency, the bankster, while White favored a dollar-centric system with gold convertibility. Ultimately, White's proposal laid the foundation of the Bretton Woods system, linking global currencies to the dollar, which was fixed at $35 per ounce of gold. The dollar's influence grew further in the 1950s as international trade expanded and U.S. economic stability attracted reserve currency investments. By 1958, the Bretton Woods system was fully operational, allowing countries to settle international transactions in dollars. However, by the 1960s, the system encountered challenges. U.S. deficits and gold outflows began to strain its gold reserves, and rising inflation added further pressure on the dollar. In response, President Nixon ended the dollar's gold convertibility in 1971, transforming it into a floating fiat currency. Despite this shift, the dollar's central role remained unchallenged due to global dependence on it for trade and stability. Yet, recent geopolitical shifts and economic strategies have prompted BRICS nations to explore the creation of a currency that could boost trade efficiency and lessen reliance on the dollar, particularly in light of economic sanctions and trade imbalances that disproportionately impact member states like Russia and China. In recent years, BRICS economies have surpassed the G7 in GDP when measured by purchasing power parity, now accounting for over 31% of global GDP, a substantial share of the world economy. These nations also make up around 16% of global trade and represent over 40% of the world's population. This economic influence has encouraged BRICS to pursue de-dollarization. For example, recent agreements between China and Brazil have enabled direct trade in their local currencies, bypassing the dollar as an intermediary and reducing transaction costs and currency exchange risks. BRICS nations aim to boost economic independence by steering clear of dollar-centric global financial systems, which they perceive as favoring Western interests. Heavy reliance on the dollar for international trade makes these economies vulnerable to U.S. policy shifts and sanctions, as seen with Russia's exclusion from SWIFT and other sanctions linked to the Ukraine conflict. By promoting trade in local currencies or establishing a BRICS currency, these nations hope to enhance their economic autonomy. Conducting cross-border trade within BRICS in local or shared currency would streamline transactions, reducing costs and risks tied to currency exchange fluctuations. Moving away from the dollar could simplify transactions, especially as intra-BRICS trade grows. In recent years, bilateral agreements for local currency trade, such as those between China and Russia or India and Russia, have illustrated the benefits of dollar-independent transactions. Globally, the dollar's dominance allows the U.S. significant influence over financial markets and economic policies. Reducing dependence on the dollar enables BRICS to promote a multipolar financial system with a more balanced distribution of economic power, giving emerging economies a stronger voice in global financial decisions, an influence BRICS argues is overdue in a multipolar world. Rising tensions between the U.S. and certain BRICS members, particularly Russia and China, have prompted these countries to explore alternatives. This diversification is viewed as a safeguard against potential future economic sanctions and trade restrictions from the U.S. and its allies. The broader BRICS alliance, with interest from countries like Saudi Arabia and Iran, could further decrease dependence on Western-controlled financial institutions like the International Monetary Fund and World Bank. BRICS nations argue that, as emerging economies, their reliance on the dollar makes them vulnerable to instability caused by U.S. domestic economic policies, such as fluctuations resulting from Federal Reserve decisions. For instance, when the U.S. raises interest rates, BRICS nations often face increased debt servicing costs and inflationary pressure. Reducing dollar reliance could bring greater stability to their own financial markets. Let's review everything known about the BRICS banknote so far, primarily based on information from Sputnik, a Russian state-owned news agency and radio broadcaster. In the Russian town of Kirak, Vladimir region, 1,000 commemorative notes with a face value of 100 BRICS were produced in anticipation of the 2023 BRICS Summit in Johannesburg, South Africa. At a recent summit in Kazan, Russia, President Vladimir Putin received one of these symbolic banknotes. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov described it as quasi-money, emphasizing its representation of the collaborative spirit among BRICS nations. The front of the note showcases national symbols and flags of the 5 founding BRICS countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The reverse side displays the flags and names of additional nations associated with BRICS: Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the UAE, along with other potential allies. Each illustration on the note was meticulously hand-drawn. The initiative for the banknote came from Yevgeny Fyodorov, the founder and owner of Kirak Typography JSC, who designed it as a gift to express his support for BRICS goals, including international cooperation and a multipolar global framework. Fyodorov explained that the circular arrangement of flags on the front symbolizes equality among BRICS members. He described the note as both a conceptual model and a symbol of an emerging multipolar world, noting that meaningful change often begins with symbolic gestures. Now, if you like this video, check out this next video right here.